Hello students, today we are going to discuss the important part of our body, that is the structural and basic unit of kidney, that is nephron. Okay, nephron is the structural and functional unit of kidney that filters the blood. About 1 million nephrons are present in each kidney. Nephron filters the blood and excretes the unwanted and toxic material out of the body. Nephron and its structure, you can see the different parts. This is the glomerulus. This is the glomerulus, which has the small and capillaries which filters the blood. It is the efferent arteriole and it is the afferent arteriole. Through efferent arteriole, the blood enters the glomerulus, and then through afferent arterioles, it goes out of the nephron. This part is known as the Bowman's capsule. After the filtration, the blood and the filtered product enters the Bowman's capsule and then enters the proximal convoluted tubules. These are the proximal convoluted tubules which have the many transporter from which many drugs which cannot be filtered through this glomerulus enters the nephron through this route. Okay, then this is the loop of Henle. This part is known as the loop of Henle. This is ascending loop of Henle, descending loop of Henle, and this is ascending loop of Henle. It is the thick and this is the thin. Okay, then this part is known as the distal convoluted tubule, which is attached to the collecting duct. It has different functions, such as the hair is the different transport from which also the different molecules enters the nephron. So here you can see the parts of nephron: Bowman's capsule, proximal convoluted tubule, loop of Henle, distal convoluted tubule, which is known as DCT. In Bowman's capsule, it contains the glomerulus. In Bowman's capsule, the glomerulus is fixed. Glomerulus is complex structure of capillaries which filters the blood. The filtration of blood is known as glomerular filtration, and the rate of this glomerular filtration is known as glomerular filtration rate. Okay, the normal glomerular filtration rate in human body is 90 to 120 ml per minute. This is to be remembered. Okay, then proximal convoluted tubule. These are the convoluted tubule directly attached to the Bowman's capsule. Here is the Bowman's capsule, you can see. Into Bowman's capsule, it is the Bowman's capsule, and this is the proximal convoluted tubules. Okay, the essential component filtered by glomerulus filtration are reabsorbed at PCT. When the glomerular filtration occurs, the different molecules which are essential for our body are filtered. The PCT reabsorbs these essential components through these different transporters. Here you can see the absorption. The reabsorption may occur through following routes: sodium hydrogen antipodes, direct sodium entry, transport of sodium potassium along with glucose, amino acids, and phosphates. Specific symporters: the reabsorption of through these four transporters, the reabsorption of different substances occurs in different extent, such as 85% of sodium bicarbonate is reabsorbed after the filtration, 65% of the sodium is reabsorbed, 65% of the calcium is reabsorbed, also the 65% of potassium, 65% of magnesium, and 100% of the glucose and amino acid occurs through the PCT, which is proximal convoluted tubule. It is connected to PCT. It is directly connected to the proximal convoluted tubule, and it is classified according to different bases. Ascending loop of Henle on the basis of location, medullary and cortical; on the basis of thickness, thick, thin; descending loop of Henle, thick or maybe thin. In descending loop of Henle, water is reabsorbed by osmosis, hence osmotic diuretics act here. Thick ascending loop of Henle actively reabsorbs. This is to be noted, okay? Thick ALH actively reabsorbs the sodium chloride about 25%, but it is impermeable to water by sodium potassium 2 chloride symporters or CRO transporter. Okay. Loop diuretics actively block the sodium potassium 2 chloride symporter and selectively inhibit sodium chloride reabsorption. Sodium potassium 2 chloride symporter is a glycoprotein with 12 domains. Furosemide bind to chloride binding site of the transport and inhibit. फ्यूरोसमाइड क्या करता है, हमारे जो सोडियम पोटेशियम 2 क्लोराइड सिम्पोर्टर के क्लोराइड बाइंडिंग साइट को बाइंड करने के बाद वो इनहिबिट कर देता है इसके रीअब्सॉर्प्शन को, किसके, सोडियम के. ठीक है. लूप डायरेटिक्स मोस्ट एफिकेशियस ऑफ ऑल द डायरेटिक्स. दिस मे बी आस्क्ड इन द एग्जाम that the loop diuretics, which of the following diuretics are most efficacious diuretics? Then what will be the answer? Here is loop diuretics. Distal convoluted tubule. It is also divided in early DCT and late DCT. Early DCT, about 10% of sodium reabsorption occurs through an electrically neutral sodium and chloride transporter and is blocked by thiazide diuretics. In distal convoluted tubules, as distal convoluted tubules are early, which are directly attached to the ascending loop of Henle, and it reabsorbs about 10% of the sodium. This is to be noted. Okay, 10% of sodium is reabsorbed through distal convoluted tubule. Okay, impermeable. It is impermeable to water. So calcium is reabsorbed by an apical calcium channel in the DCT. Calcium reabsorbs. अपाइकल कैल्शियम चैनल्स जो होते हैं हमारे DCT के अंदर, उससे हमारा कैल्शियम का रीअब्सॉर्प्शन होता है. apical channels in the DCT epithelial cells and by basolateral sodium calcium exchanger. Okay. Potassium is secreted in exchanger of sodium largely in the influence of aldosterone. Potassium is secreted in exchange of sodium. That means the sodium is reabsorbed while the potassium is secreted in the influence of aldosterone, while aldosterone acts on the DCT. All the diuretics that modify the potassium secretion act at these sites. Different diuretics which modify the secretion of potassium act at these sites. Then the last part is collecting duct. Absorption of water under the influence of antidiuretic hormone, that is vasopressin, act by acting on aquaporine channels. वाटर का जो एब्जॉर्प्शन होता है अंडर द इन्फ्लुएंस ऑफ एंटीडायरेटिक हार्मोन, जो कि एंटीडायरेटिक हार्मोन है, यानी कि जो हमारे यूरिन के एक्सक्रेशन को कम करता है, उसके इन्फ्लुएंस के अंदर हमारे जो एब्जॉर्प्शन ऑफ वाटर है थ्रू एक्वापोरिन चैनल ये इन्फ्लुएंस होता है, ठीक है। रीएब्जॉर्प्शन ऑफ यूरिया थ्रू UT1, यूरिया का जो एब्जॉर्प्शन है जिसे कि हम यूरिया ट्रांसपोर्टर 1 कहते हैं, यूरिया ट्रांसपोर्टर प्रेजेंट इन अपाइकल मेम्ब्रेन ऑफ DCT in the renal medulla. The concentration of urea in medulla is responsible for high osmolarity. That means the osmolarity occurs in the collecting duct is due to the urea. Renal function is also influenced by natriuretic peptides, which enhances sodium excretion in presence of sodium overload. Renin, angiotensin, aldosterone, cysteine, and prostaglandins released in the kidney also influence the renal functions. Okay, here you can see the diagram. Glucose, amino acids, vitamins, lactates, urea, uric acid, these are reabsorbed from proximal convoluted tubule. Okay, urea, uric acid, creatinine, and some drugs are secreted in the PCT, that means proximal convoluted tubule, while sodium chloride and bicarbonate water is reabsorbed from TCT. Here you can see the symbols. It is for secretion, it is for reabsorption, it is for secretion. That is, hydrogen ion, potassium ion, and ammonium ions are secreted in the collecting duct. Okay, urea and water is reabsorbed from collecting duct. It shows the reabsorption. Okay,